Welcome back to From the Light to the Village with Miss Audrey Marie, myself, Jen LaFave, and introducing Miss Renee, an intuitive eating coach.
Renee, my new friend, my dear friend, my soul sister. You are quite an amazing woman. I found Ray through a very interesting little wormhole in time, a really great intimate connection with the great Alicia of Sacred Stays. And she was doing an intimate connection virtual. And Ray was this little energy, not little, there's no little energy about this Ray, but she was fantastic. And we connected through a virtual integration, like little meet and greet kind of networking on a metaphysical deep level. And come to find out, Ray is an author and a chef and an intuitive eating coach, and she's got some really exciting things happening in her world right now. And then there is some modules, some class time, some education on this stuff.
Yes.
So that is super exciting. Ray, what's the name of your book?
So the name of my book is The Color of Intuitive Eating. It's all about like your inner genius, unlocking that you already know what you need to eat, but also understanding the emotions that are at work behind all of that stuff, and just bringing more clarity, more color into our lives. A lot of times we make it mundane, or we just keep doing the same things over and over again and making these recycled choices and that don't serve us. And so we need to be aware and wake up to all the colors around us. And so that was one of the reasons why I wrote the book.
I have to ask, how did this start for you? Because I'm sure it's been a journey.
Everything kind of started with me first getting into, like a few years ago, just getting into the health aspect of things, finding out that all the additives we had in our food and, learning more about that, becoming more plant-based and doing different things like that. So it's basically been years that I've been on this journey of like what I call Discover Ray.
That's so cute.
Yeah. And so basically it all ended up with me realizing how our spiritual and emotional world is super interconnected to our physical, and it is not separate like we like to separate them, and that we need to have all of them in play in unity in order to make like lasting effects of our lives, like actual ripples, to even just continue doing something with enthusiasm. So I know a lot of people think, oh, enthusiasm comes and goes. It actually kind of doesn't. It will stay if you stay with you, kind of thing.
I couldn't agree more with that. I literally couldn't. And you said something about how food becomes like repetitive or mundane. And I've said this to I don't know how many people, like the most dreaded question of the day is, what are we going to have for dinner? Like, I hate that question.
Yes. And that is even a clue in. So when we start to love, we start to hate eating the same things all the time, and we feel like that's our only option, where in our lives is us doing the same thing over and over again our only option? Because how we do one thing is how we do everything. And being the intuitive eating coach, a lot of people, it's funny, they come to me and they're like, I thought we were going to just talk a lot about food. I'm like, it's about food, but you eat in a lot of different ways. And I teach people how to wake up to all the 5 senses of eating, because we focus on what we're putting in our mouths as being full, but we need to connect to the nourishing aspects. And in order to do that, you need all of your senses engaged. And then we already have the answer to that most dreaded question, right?
Like, if there's energy in everything, a lot of people fail to look at it being literally in the food that we eat. And like you said too, like with a lot of the preservatives or the chemicals that we're finding out are in our food, and then we change that and we shift that. I mean, that alone in itself will shift the energy of our bodies.
Exactly. It'll shift the energy of our bodies, just even knowing, because in my book, I do address, like, even since the beginning of time, food has been very diverse and different. And so going through, even, this is my choosing. when I wrote the book, I noticed that even God said in Genesis, when he created all the foods, that it was good. And so why would he take the time to make that one little small statement out of all the stuff that has happened? And when you really pull it into perspective, he meant all these things to come together to actually have meaning, profound. Those people who do know of the beginning story, the time that Adam spent with God was always walking and talking in the garden. And so it alludes me to the idea that we have someone that this God in us that sets a table for us, that knows exactly what we need, and that same God energy is inside of us, and we already know what we need to eat. And it's diverse because we're diverse as people, as humans. Like, we were created all different, and that is beautiful. So
well, it's no different if you feast your thoughts upon something that's positive or negative, or if you feast physically on a food or a substance that is positive or negative. How do you feel about coffee?
Coffee. I don't believe coffee is right or wrong. I personally do not. I don't. And it's funny that you ask that question, because a lot of people are always like, should I have coffee? And I'm like, should you? Because at the end of the day, I know from my personal journey, I discovered as I was getting more in tune with me that I discovered I was the coffee. I know that that's like,
Ooh.
You guys
shift. Because I felt the energy in my veins every time I would drink coffee, and it had nowhere to go. Because then I thought, is this a bad thing? And then I realized, no, it's really actually cool, because it shows that my body is properly distributing my energy and my metabolism's all good. So I don't need coffee's help anymore. Like, I don't need it anymore. It wasn't that I don't like coffee anymore, or that's a bad food. It was just more, it didn't fit anymore. I edited that out of my life.
Would you say that you more or less changed your relationship with coffee?
Yes. And it's never been to where like I was the person who always had to have it, but I would always drink it anyway. Like, if I met with someone, yeah.
Drinking the coffee. I like the coffee. Why do I like the coffee? Right?
Yeah. I mean, I used to work at Starbucks, right? So I used to manage, right.
Oh my God.
I used to manage all the
I would take
Starbucks.
a second fucking job at Starbucks just to drink the coffee. Like, my relationship with Starbucks is very intimate.
Mm-hmm.
Very intimate.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And so and that usually ties to emotions too. Like, I know my mother-in-law loves coffee, but not because she needs the energy. She just enjoys having her cup of coffee in the morning. Yeah. And that's okay. It's just a favorite food, right?
I like how you said that. It's a favorite food. It, as long as it doesn't become something you're dependent on it, or even, I mean, it is what it is, but
yeah,
to it. But it's also, preference, and we don't have to deny ourselves of things that we like either.
Nope.
Would you agree or disagree? I'm just curious, because I actually read this, and when I read this a long time ago, it kind of made sense to me. Do you feel like, or would you agree, or would you be able to add on to somebody that has like a really, really sweet tooth, loves sweet food? It's actually connected to the motion of love. And if they overindulge in a lot of sweet foods, it's really because they're kind of trying to fill a void where they're lacking in that love, whether it's self-love, relationship love. Would you agree with that?
I do find that a lot. I also find too that it varies from person to person. So what I do is I do a color test with people, and that color test, and then them describing the first fruit or vegetable that comes to mind, and then them describing the personality they would apply to that food, allows me to clue into what they're actually saying. Like, what story are they reliving over and over? And so a lot of times people you either have one or two things. People are trying to fill a void with love, or like with other things that might feel like it's love or comfortable or whatever, their comfort food. And then you have the people that have resistance to love. Then there's the walls, because of what they've experienced. And it's funny because they've been walling for so long, they don't even feel the wall themselves, but their inner child will speak up during this test and allow that to come forward. And so that's kind of what we do when we play with these colors, with the foods, with the game. It does have a lot to do with what's coming up for you.
Let me just tell you. Let me just tell you.
She amazing.
My mind is blown right now. And it's almost like when you're speaking, for me anyways, I don't know, I'm not going to speak for anybody else, for Audrey or anything, but like for me, I'm like, oh my God, this makes so much sense. Why didn't I know this before? So how quickly, just for curiosity, how quickly does it take you to go through one of these little intuitive color tests?
I do the full assessment of every energy center with that. Like if people call and, they want the whole consultation, the assessment plan, and, then that's from there, depending on which energy centers they have blockages in, or they're sluggish or that kind of thing, leads them to the program that I'll set them up on, as far as like which energy center we work on first and where we go from there.
And where do people go if they want like a full assessment, or if they're looking for that guidance?
You can email me at culture.curious@gmail.com. Right now I'm in the middle of working through the platform that I'm using to put the program onto. And so I'm not able to have a direct link to that just yet. But when I get that, I will provide that as well for you guys, which is happening in the middle of October. So I'm pretty excited.
And just for all of our listeners, clarity out there. I mean, this is the same kind of situation. Working with Ray would be the same as like getting a reading or sitting with somebody, communicating with her and coming up with a work action plan and having sessions and working with her and developing, working in that manner. Same thing that we're all used to. So.
Yeah.
Because everybody eats, right? Not everybody has to be spiritual, or he has to be like even religious or whatever, but everybody's got to eat. So.
Yeah, everybody's, and it doesn't even matter what part of the road you're coming from. If you have a blockage in your energy, it's a blockage. So, it's not serving you in your life. And actually the program is super interactive. There's movements, activities, and different things to do to connect with each energy center as well in the program.
Super, super. I'm so glad that this is like perfect timing, divine timing as always, that I had just finished some videos on the working with the alchemy and introducing myself on that kind of educational platform. And I just spent like 5 videos going through the major chakra centers. You saw that? So when I was getting guidance, because this whole kind of interactive and continuous whatever downloads that are coming in, they were like, you need to go back through the chakras. And I'm like, I'm a quantum shaman. I want to go back to the chakras. And it was like, they were like, what are you doing? Like your foundation, those centers, that's where we store it all. And then as I was reviewing my research and going through, it made everything so clear. Like, what is the action of the root chakra, and what is, our solar plexus plays with our ego and how we present to other people, and like all of these things. So this is a great way for anybody who's interested in working on clearing and charging those chakras. This is a beautiful platform to be able to do that, you guys.
Through meditating and doing all these different things, I discovered that the colors is what actually tries to grab our attention from the beginning, the foods, everything.
Right.
It also matches up with whatever is going on in your body. So I was diagnosed with uterine fibroids about a while ago. And I noticed before that diagnosis, though, I was eating a lot of oranges and I couldn't stop eating them. And I do remember the time that I had stopped eating them because I said they're too messy. I don't like the way they get sticky or whatever on my hands. I can't deal with this. And I stopped eating them. But what I didn't realize I was doing was subconsciously, I was shutting off my feeling world, because at the very same time that I did that, it was because I was busy and I was working and I was managing and I was doing all these different things, right? And the moment that I stopped everything, all I wanted was oranges. So, you know, coming from, oh, I hate oranges. No, that's not true. Like, I love oranges.
Right.
It's just that I colored those moments things that I didn't need. And so that's what's going on psychologically. Like, we are coloring and, you know, making certain foods and certain things like wrong or right or red or blue or whatever the color.
That little moment last month with you was a catapult for me, knowing that my lower chakra system was just like, we need to work, you know, and it was quote unquote, if we want to identify it as work, but like to be focused and have spiritual disciplines and do exercises to stretch these things and to allow feelings to come up and to be able to experience them and process them so that we can obtain balance. But the joy of what Ray does, and I believe in this too, and I believe Jen does this, whether she knows it or not, is doing these things out of joy and in fun and curious and inviting that energy, so that, I don't know, for me, I feel like when you're inviting that joy and that curiosity and that childlike wonder in, first of all, it makes everything smooth, but it's a level of safety. It's a level of the soul feeling safe to be able to feel and experience, and then have, you know, and then that's a release of things that maybe are writing our story in whichever direction we're writing. Because once we can feel and kind of like clear the energy, and sometimes it takes longer than other or whatever, I mean, time, however, how much focus, but when you start to neutralize some of that stuff, you can make, you have, well, I look at it in a way, you have new energy to manifest into other things.
I want to ask, like, and obviously I'm hoping that people that really resonate with your form of work will reach out to you, but what do you go on like a weekly regimen? Do you design something that's tailored specifically to them? Like, what are some of your key ways?
Some of the key things we do is if a client does a one-on-one with me, basically we go through 3 energy centers. It takes 30 days per energy center, because I want them to actually get in it takes 30 days for the human mind or to create a habit, a new pattern. And so we need to not just only have the discussion, but we need to also create, like, make the impact. And so for a month, you'll get 2 calls a month. And basically I give you the assignments and different things like that. And then if you're moving through, you know, I move with you. So like, in case, like, you know, your move came and it wasn't your appointment time, I don't care about that. I want you to move through your item. I'm building an online platform where you can learn how to dance and paint and do different things to help bring out and open up those energy centers.
Do you incorporate like recipes and
Yes.
things? Oh my God.
Yes, I do give people recipes and like suggestions on how to incorporate more of that color into their life. And we talk about essential oils.
So relevant, collectively, everything. I love it. Perfect.
So I'm going to ask a question, and by all means, you don't have to answer. And if it crosses a boundary, just be like, no, bitch. I know, I'm just like, you could. I wouldn't
never know what's going to come out. You just don't. You just
know. Who is the female, all right, that's, I feel like she's more on your dad's side of the family.
Oh.
I'm sorry. That she was heavier all the way through, but especially in the chest area. And I don't know if her name was like Mimi or if we called her like Nanny, but it sounds something like that. But this woman like cooked like jambalayas and like all kinds of stuff where you just basically threw everything in a big ass pot and it turned out really, really good. Who is she?
It was my great grandmother's mother, and she's part African, Native American, and my great grandmother was part French, and she cooked all the time. So yeah.
Well, when you said that you are proud of yourself, like this woman is proud beyond expression. It's the only reason that I figured it was possibly appropriate to bring that up, because you got some people over there that are like cheering you on. So.
That is so funny. Thank you for confirming that and for affirming it, because before I even started all this work, I would have a dream, and I had this dream for about 4 years after my great grandmother passed away. And I would wake up in an empty field with nothing, and it was just barren, like it had been burned or scorched to the ground. And like she would wake me up and say, "They're waiting on you." And I'm like, "What is everybody waiting on? I don't understand." And she would come and get me, and then she would put her hand to the ground, and she would be like, "So there's something here." And I'm like, "What's here? Like, I don't understand what you're saying." And she was like, "Why don't you listen a little closer to the ground?" And then as I put my hand to the ground, in my ear, I heard the voices of all these different versions of plants and foods coming up out of the ground. And then she would say, "Okay, it's okay, you can do this." And so little trees started like sprouting up out of the ground, like of all different kinds. Like I grew a forest. And when I turned around, she was standing behind me, and she said, "You're the mother of things that grow." And I was like, whoa. I was like, that is so wow. And I would wake up after that, like, and
so
then
lit up.
That is so wonderful. That, Jesus, Lord help me. So yeah, that's just, she was right. She's right. You're the mother of all the little baby trees out there.
And I really invite anybody who's kind of really resonating with this, whether you clearly know something that you would go work with Ray on, or if you don't really know why, but you're really drawn, like there's definitely, she's definitely doing some beautiful alchemy and using some great tools. And just like when we started the beginning of this podcast, we were talking about, the dreaded question and what to make to dinner and stuff like that. And we kind of wind up in the cycle. You do need to mix it up with different approaches. And this is a really good way when you're trying to explore yourself and work with the subconscious and clear and make room for that golden energy that you can manifest. Sometimes you do need to kind of switch it up and do something, play in a different way and really kind of get out of the same story. And just like with dinner, finding something that may be interesting. And there's so many levels of self-exploration and self-discovery and healing that goes with this work, painting life in a new, different way and doing a little healing. And some of the things that you're saying are very profound, and that even just from this phone call and our brief interaction previously, that I will walk with forever. You have a very deep alchemic way of helping people rewrite, even through your vibrational imprint, just from, like this, it's part of your gift. I'm sure you're aware of that. You've got to be aware of that, right? Even just by your presence and just by being interested with talking with us today and sharing what you do and, sharing with our community, and, we'll plaster this all over the place. Tell us about your class. When is this coming up? If anybody is interested, is the class in regards to educating ourselves on how to do this, like for our own selves, or are you teaching new practitioners this way? What's the class about?
I believe the class is going to be for everyone, because at the end of the day, I think it's a new way to interact. As I've been going through all of this stuff, I've been going into different areas or mediums or forms of healing, and they've been really great. But something was just sparked in me to just make this all happen in the child's way, like with fun and ease. And as I started discovering my fun and my ease, the ease, and it poured out of me that there needs to be more, because we try to get really serious and we try to have all these different things that we're doing, which I'm not saying they're not good or helpful, but sometimes our minds literally get in the way of us truly recognizing who we are and who we want to be, and the clarity that comes from that. And so my program involves people dancing, painting, writing poetry, actually sitting with ourselves, the meditations, the chants, cooking, fun with ease, being engaged, that I picked this tomato and I like it for the reasons, feeling the squishiness of the tomato, even if it's to a point of I want to make marinara sauce and you're like using your hands to do it instead of we're just going to put it in a blender. No, we're not going to skip the feels on this. So everything is a feel.
If you were going to say you've been studying all the components that, like all the ingredients to this marinara, how many years have you been cooking this sauce?
Man, I feel like God's been leading me to this sauce for a while, like, and he'll give me one ingredient at a time. I mean, like, so I can't really say or put like a label on that time, but since the moment I became aware that things were going to be very different for me, I think has been in my college years, my early 20s, late teens, that things were definitely just going to be different for me. And I didn't know how, and I didn't see where this was going, but I knew that something was going to come of it, something different, unexpected, and something that really lights me up. And for a while, I have been consumed with the idea that colors make our lives better, and I didn't know how. And then I started getting, like I said, all these little pieces over the years.
So were you an artist first or a chef first, or both at the same time?
So I was cooking my whole life since I was like 9. Like I literally cooked my first set of eggs and was like, hey, you know, I brought my mom breakfast that day because she was sleeping late and I was hungry. And I was like, well, I'm going to go get these eggs made. And I made my mom some. And she was like, how do you know how to make eggs? I was like, I don't know. Like I watched you make them. So I guess I know. And ever since then, I couldn't get out of the kitchen. But I mean, really, it was before even that, because my mom would laugh and she said that there's literal pictures of me as a little baby that playing with pots and toys that look like them and putting things in pots. Like they bought me a whole bunch of presents one year when I was little or something, and I didn't even play with them. I played with pots. I have a Bachelor of Science in Culinary Arts, and then I added health coaching to that. So all of you out here that if you need help and you're like worried that I'm going to get this, but I won't get advice on actual health, don't worry about that either, because I pretty much do nutritional chef work. Yeah, covered on all spectrums on the food side.
All of our listeners out there, it is easy. It's not easy, but it is a choice to be focused enough on nutrition and create that deficit to see the body actually lose weight. However, the reason I feel from my experience and working with others, if we don't deal with the reason, it's hard to permanently change the behaviors. So if there's a reason you're having to put yourself on restriction, which can be very damaging, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically, that restriction. And if you're constantly in and out of restriction, and then what you consider to be able to eat what you want or be normal, and going back and forth, it can be there's a lot of learning and lessons that go on with that. But if you don't get to the root of why you're feeling the lack, and we don't clear that up.
I did discover that a lot when I was just first coming in the food and health coaching and doing things, the right way, that as soon as we tell ourselves we're about to go on a diet, what we're pretty much doing is subconsciously, even if you get excited about it, subconsciously, you just told yourself something's wrong with me. I'm not good enough. All these things, all these words and thought patterns created neurons, and they created pathways to a negative feeling in the end. So the outcome will cause you to cheat on yourself, because we have cheat days, and we're looking for guilt-free this and guilt-free that. And at the end of the day, like, denying yourself is the worst thing that you could possibly do.
And right now from an astrological standpoint, we have 6 different planets that are bringing their energies closer to our planet. We have 6 planets in retrograde right now. Mercury and Mars being one of them. There's a lot of stuff coming up. And it can be, if we're unaware of these things, it can feel very chaotic. But what I try to explain is, even though it's a constant play of identifying and feeling through things, and I always go back to creativity. I love that you use art and movement and meditation. I really agree with that. But if you look at it more as an opportunity, that this stuff is coming up and it's here now. It's usually down there and we can't get it and it's just running rampant. But it's up here now and it's coming in and it's presenting us an opportunity to let it go and choose a different. So we have to kind of, do that. Jen and I were talking briefly before you popped on, and we feel that this, as intuitives and energetic folks and whatever, that this is a really, everybody knows this is a monumental time in our history. This is the end of the cycle, and stuff is coming up so that we can clear out this density.
People are like, oh my God, and they're operating in fear over stuff, and I'm just going, well, you know what, all this shows me is that this is what we've had all along. Like, it's just now that we know about it. And now that we know about it, what are we going to do about it? Are you going to continue to go in this path and, live a fearful life with that thing on your back? Or are we going to transcend that? Because what does that turn into? What is that going to turn into for us? And it's as a nation, just us trying to find our courage, but it all is going to happen one person at a time. Like, we have to light up one person at a time.
For a long time where we've been suppressing all of our feelings, and we don't want to feel, and we're going to block this out, whether it be by, recreational substances or prescribed substances. So what I like about meeting people like you and Audrey is that there's not one way to feel. You can, whatever it is that you resonate with, like I said before, everybody has to eat. Some people can start there. If maybe they're not at a point where they connect with something spiritually or religiously, then everybody's got to eat, but find a way to feel and move through it so you can transmute it.
Yeah.
To do that.
For sure. I I think I can speak for Jen in saying that we find that the information that you're sharing with the world and the community is extremely beneficial, and we would have you on all the time. So you just tell us when you're ready, and you can always come back because we love it.
Thanks for watching, guys. Be sure to send any questions, comments, concerns, topics to fromthelight to thevillage@gmail.com.